Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Success Series. I'm your host, David Berg. I'm here with our executive producer, Michael Konofsky. Our guest today is Valerie Remm. Valerie, thank you for being here. Model turned interior designer and a whole lot more. We're going to dive into her story. Valerie, if you can give our listeners a little bit about your background, where you came from, and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. It's nice being here. Thank you for having me. I grew up in Israel. I'm a daughter to Russian, Eastern European Jewish immigrants. We've immigrated to Israel when I was very young. I was 1 year old. I grew up there and started traveling through my modeling contract, which I have scored when I was 15. I'm not sure if that's the proper word, but I got scouted when I was very young and started traveling the world. And when I was about 20 years old, I signed with an agency in the United States, and that sponsored my visa here and kind of my move here in working, getting in love with USA. Prior to that, I've traveled and worked in Europe, which was fun, but it was just brief and short trips. I lived in Miami for a little bit, in Tel Aviv, and now in New York City for over 10 years.
Beautiful. And let's go back to so you said you're 15 years old, you're getting scouted. How does that happen? Did somebody knock on your door? How did they find you, right? You're not.
It sounds like the typical story of a girl being scouted. McDonald's, a very nice lady comes to me and compliments about my beauty. I, as a child, thinking that it must be a joke and it can't be real. A few weeks later, I was contacted by an agency, still big agency of today, and was called for a meeting. And that's when I actually started believing it. I went to a meeting with my mother, who was psyched. I never thought of it as something that it could happen. It always was a thought, but back then there was no social media, there were no other platforms. The only way to get scouted is by someone to see you in McDonald's. They say, hey, wow, this could work. I don't think that in today's world it's happening anymore. Everyone has their own platform. So that was the beginning of my path, and it took a few years till I established my portfolio and enough images to be considered for more serious castings and auditions, and I worked my way up a bit by bit.
And this was in Israel when you were scouted?
Yeah. I grew up in Ashdod. It was in good old hometown Ashdod, in McDonald's and in the mall. In early 2000s, that's where you would hang out.
Okay, that's where the cool kids were.
Yeah, that's where the cool kids were.
And was this something that, had any of your friends been scouted before? Did you know about people that in Israel and then eventually came to the United States to model, or was this the first time that you were exposed to something of this nature?
It was quite rare.
Okay.
I think when I've started, I didn't know of any other girls from our hometown who had the same path. But the more I worked in the industry, the more I learned that it's more common than I thought. I met a few good friends, and we're still friends till today, and they're from the same hometown. So I would say it is more of a rare scenario in which only one in a few get scouted, and you get lucky to go to the big city.
Sure. And I wonder if you can put yourself back at that time, before or while you were approached. Did you feel beautiful internally? Did you actually think that you were worthy of being a model, or was it a shock to you?
It's quite of a funny question, because beauty is such a big topic for me. I was brought up by a fashion designer mother, who really loved beauty and admired beauty, in a family that admired beauty. So they always made sure to bring my confidence and really say how beautiful I was. And I feel that because I've heard it so much from my family, that it's not something that I dwelled on. I don't remember a moment in which I stood in front of the mirror and thought to myself, oh my God, I'm gorgeous. Still till today, it never happens. But I do remember feeling confident and feeling supported believing in myself, that it's knowing that it's a tool that I could work for my favor, as long as I know how to handle and position myself.
Right. What a lot of people, I think everybody, desires to be beautiful, both obviously internally, but more or less importantly, externally as well. What would your advice or thought process be to somebody who doesn't feel beautiful, as far as, you know, getting it from other areas of life? Maybe they are beautiful, they just don't see it. How would you talk to them?
Beauty, it's a very big definition. I feel like in today's world, everyone is beautiful. And beauty, thankfully, has so many forms and in ways. It's not 20, 30 years ago, there was really truly only one standard to beauty. Today, you have your personality first, your belief system, how you carry yourself, how you see the world, and that's what makes you beautiful. Then you add to that some swag, some personal style, knowing how to work with yourself and believing in yourself, and that's what I think sums up to beauty. I think that the standard definition of looking at a girl and thinking, "Oh my God, she's gorgeous," is a passé, because there's so many. We're open to so many other ways of viewing what beauty is. So for the person who doesn't feel confident when he looks at a mirror because of how he appears visually, I would say that it would be developing his confidence, and what makes him feel good about himself would be first, and that's how that confidence will come. Because if you would solely base it on how you look, then it's not such a pleasant existence, because on the day that you don't look good, then
Everything's horrible.
Everything's horrible.
Right.
And that's just, nobody looks great 24/7. We're humans, and everyone has their good angles and bad angles, and if you know how to work it, you got the trick.
Right. And so on that note, what do you think are it's tough when you look at something objectively and say it's all good or it's all bad. I'm sure there's gifts to both. Right. What are some of the things that maybe people don't know or wouldn't know about the model industry and being a model that maybe isn't as pretty or as beautiful as it actually seems?
I feel like looking from the outside, and it appears as a very fast way to get wealthy, to get famous, to be and to reach that ultimate success. When in reality is that it's just like any other profession in the world, is way more complex and has way more layers to it. So the idea of an instant gratification of wealth or fame or recognition is not there as you believe it. I feel like that in today's industry, you have only few models that are house known name and are making that 8 figures a year. And everyone else are just trying to pave their path. So it is a great profession if you manage to work consistently. But it's nowhere near as glamorous or as uplifting as it appears. It has different types of challenges that come with greater perks than other positions, such as travel, such as meeting very influential people and being in wonderful places, and really get to experience life to the fullest.
Sure. Being in both fashion and modeling for over a decade, what was that experience like for you? I'm sure there were many challenges as well. What are some of the things that you went through that shaped you to who you are today, that led you to the career path that you're on now?
Absolutely. Many. And a matter of fact, I felt that every challenge in my life turned to a blessing in its way. I felt that the challenges and that I needed to go through as a model, working my way up, building my portfolio, getting to those castings initially as I grew up in the southern portion of Israel, and castings were in Tel Aviv. Having funds to fund all that, starting early, coming from low middle class family. Those were the initial challenges that required a lot of determination, grit, persistence, that ended up being real tools in my life and everything else that I do.
Connotation with women that at a certain number of age, whether it's 30, 32, they have to be married, or there's like this rush to desperation. But I know some female friends of mine, they're 27, 28, 29, and there's a lot of panic and anxiety surrounding it. While with you you were very chill about it. You didn't, when you were young, you were like, I don't even
Right.
know if I need to get married. I'm good on my own. And that's probably a part of why you were able to attract such a great relationship so early on. What would be your advice to them to just chill out a bit more and allow, instead of like, you know, because you see it, right? Like this like panic mode where it's like, we need to get married now. It's like the only thing that matters. And
Right. I'll start by saying I get it. And I get it, ladies. And that's coming from having this internal biological clock that for women, I feel like it starts to tick a little earlier, the urge to have kids or
Right.
the want to have kids. I'm not sure that urge is the right word here, but it's a want, it's a desire. You start envisioning yourself in that role more and more as life progresses. I get it, and it could be challenging. I feel like the best advice would be to focus on growing yourself, yourself, your personality, your career, your understanding who you are, what you like and what you don't like. And I really believe that everything comes to you at the right time when you're ready. Often we feel that we're ready for something, but it's not the case. And it requires some more inner work in order to get to that place. And without that inner work, even if we ended up getting it, it doesn't feel as right. I hope that with the change of years and more modern times, women will start feeling pressured less and less into entering this institution at a young age just because of a need to check the box rather
Right.
than finding the right partner for them. And I do see it more progress over the years. Being Jewish, being brought up in such a tradition and a religion that cherishes, highly values the family unit, I could also understand the pressure that's being applied on a girl to
Right.
find her coupling. And there's a certain beauty in Kabbalah, which we learn that we all have our soulmate. It doesn't mean we have only one soulmate.
Right.
We have many. But it's important to work towards finding that soulmate rather than just finding something that will check that box. So in order to reduce that stress, one should say to himself, hey, it's coming for me. It's coming from me when I least expect it. The best way to ensure that it's coming from me is for me to work on myself and everything that makes me happy, everything that helps me bloom and blossom in this chaotic world of ours.
Beautiful. I love that. So instead of spending time trying to find that perfect person, become perfect in yourself first, and then you'll be the vessel to attract them.
As much as perfection exists, yes.
Right. Not in the external perspective,
Right.
like we touched on earlier.
1,000,000%.
Right. You mentioned Kabbalah. What's Kabbalah, for those that don't know, is a spiritual wisdom. That's how we know each other. For you, what has spirituality been at a young age? Is it something that you only came to later in life? And what does it mean for you?
It means so much. It means that the person that I am today and how I see life, how I analyze life, and how I try to approach everything that I initiate and comes at me. I started my path in the Kabbalah Center when I really started when I've met Eugene back in 2014. Eugene was studying Kabbalah already for a few years. I was introduced to it in Tel Aviv while living there. Growing up in Israel kind of sets you in this an interesting mindset and kind of the belief that Kabbalah is a practice that needs to be touched only by certain very high consciousness individuals that are able to tap into those studies because of their elevated status. Living in the United States and joining the center through Eugene has taught me that at first I was deeply impressed because Kabbalah was approachable. For the first time, it was approachable, and it was kind of like my favorite version of a book, which is just the summary of a book that takes 15 minutes to read versus the one that takes 20 hours.
Right. The Spark Notes.
Fabulous. So it's really come get the bullet points, understand all the main concepts without truly needing to learn in a cheder for so many years to get to that place. And that preconceived notion that I had slowly vanished.
Beautiful. You mentioned limited belief systems. Insecurity is something that I often face, and I think everybody in the world in one way or another does.
Absolutely.
For me,
every day.
Right? Every day. And for me, in starting a company, the insecurities come up on customers, on investors, on everybody you're dealing with. All your insecurities come to the surface.
1,000,000%.
What are some insecurities that you face, or are facing, if you're comfortable sharing, and then how do you deal with them? Or how do you overcome them?
I feel that insecurities are part of life. I deal with insecurities on a daily basis and end up...
What's the most recent one, to make it personal and practical?
The most recent one or practical one was regarding an answer I've given on a project of ours, in which I ended up second guessing myself. Is this the most practical route to execute this? Is this indeed the best way we could approach it? Am I simplifying this process, or am I overcomplicating it? So just today, it could also be, it could be as work related, it could be honestly in any topic. It's important for me. It's important to kind of go back to my belief systems and check in. Is it something that could actually happen? Is it realistic, or is it just me overthinking certain situations that for the most part are going to resolve themselves? And I've learned with time that 9 out of 10 things will figure themselves out. So my newest approach for insecurities is to think of them for a little bit and then just letting them go and try to focus on something else. It ends up coming back to me in the best way possible so far. So I feel like when I let something go, it goes and
it washes away.
It does its thing. If I could be very helpful, if you don't feel like you look good that day, not really. We all have them. It's just the sense of being human. I feel like for the most part, we know what we could do better. We could sleep a little bit more. We could take care of something a little bit more, and that should help. I wish there was just one type of an answer that's...
Right. No, completely. I think it's such a great point. We all have the same challenges and fears and worries. Yeah, we all feel like we're isolated in our fears when it comes to us.
Yeah.
So I think even to your point, even just being aware that everybody experiences this in one way or another is a really relieving feeling, and not taking it so seriously, right? It's never that big of it. It's one day, it's one appearance, it's one dress, it's one word. Like, it's never that big of a deal. In being a part of Catch to the extent that you have, and seeing Catch the way that it is, how do you feel that spirituality and these tools have influenced the success of Catch and the culture that exists there, as I've experienced in LA, Vegas, Aspen, New York?
I feel that as he progressed in his journey in the Kabbalah Center, how he operates changed, and more concepts such as the desire for this to receive for the self alone evaporated. The more it became to be about taking care of others, making sure that you take care of first and foremost your team, the people that work with you day in and day out, the one that are the bread, butter, and the oil of this business, and the one to make everything happen, are being treated fairly and equally to their best abilities. And then I feel that having that deep desire to do well and right by others, understanding that you're only as successful as your understanding of how big of a vessel you are. And the more you understand that, if you do good to others, when you do good to others, good comes back to you. And it doesn't necessarily mean you live with a notion of, hey, I'm doing this so I could get something back in return.
Calculated.
It's just doing good to others, and knowing that by doing good to the others, you will trust the process and it all works out. And tapping into those principles every time there's a need to solve a problem, to expand, to grow, to do whatever you need to do that day. Those tools are integral to his success and his growth.
There's no doubt. I saw a stat the other day. It said that when people get married, specifically, it said when a man gets married, to his wife, the first couple of years, whether he's in business or work, they grow tremendously. I'm curious your perspective. What do you think it is about a woman or woman that allows that to happen? And then in your personal relationship, what have you seen, or what do you attest yourself to Eugene's success or to the success of the company?
Thank you. I feel that finding the right pairing, or finding your soulmate, finding that individual you long for, helps you feel satisfied in a certain aspect of your life. And by being satisfied in certain aspect of your life, by having a great relationship, you feel fulfilled. And as a result, you have more desire to do well in different aspects, such as business. I don't know if it's me personally, but I think that in general, that we just, when a lid finds its pot, or when a pot finds its lid, it ends up being the right stage, the right ground for everything else to blossom. It allows you to go and conquer the world in a different way, and somehow it ends up also correlating to the lack of desire to receive for the self alone, right? It's not just for you personally anymore. It's for both of you. It's for your nest. And that ends up creating real magic, because when you're not selfish about what you're doing, when you really want to do right by others, whether it's this, whoever you're servicing through your business and your venture, or your significant other, when the good intentions are there and the seeds that you plant are great with that, and have the same intention, it ends up creating magic.
Beautiful. Do you think that one can achieve success in life and be happy without being in a marriage? Absolutely.
I think that he will achieve success in that aspect. So he might be successful in business, but he won't be successful in a relationship.
Right.
As some people are very successful. Most of people on this planet know success, hopefully know success in some aspect of their life.
Right.
It's so the lucky few that end up getting it all, when there's truly no such a thing of getting it all, where balance is not necessarily equal, and it's not necessarily the same for everyone, and it's not necessarily the same balance today that it will be tomorrow. So yes, you can absolutely be successful in what you do. Doesn't mean you'll be successful never in all the other aspects in your life. But having a great relationship does fuel other aspects of success in however form you define it, because it's such a big term. It assists in fueling that, and in bringing that to your family, or creating that for yourself.
Such a great point. Yeah, because I think even our show is called the Success Series. Success is subjective. For everybody, it's something
100%.
different. That's beautiful. I think when I think of my own personal life, and I think we all do this, we hyperfixate on the one thing that we don't have, and then it causes this like darkness over all the blessings that we currently have.
1,000,000%.
Right.
1,000,000%.
So how do you, I'm even asking for myself and our audience, how do you navigate through, you're 21 years old, you're 22 years old, either you don't have the relationship you want, you don't have the business that you want, or you don't have the people around you that you want. Let's say those are the top three categories, right? Like friends, money, and relationships. How do you live your life happy and with joy in spite of not having those things that you desire?
It's a great question. Let's start with unpacking what happiness is.
Sure.
It's a path rather than a destination. And when I say that, it sounds like a very big cliche. It's a path rather than a destination. What does it actually mean? It means that none of us ends in life in this ultimate joy and happiness and this bliss. What we do get is moments of happiness and joy throughout our path. And by seeing those more rather than, and acknowledging them more and giving them more stage rather than the negative aspects of those paths, that's how you end up creating more joy. If I think that a 20-year-old has that understanding, he probably doesn't. Most of my 20s ended up in feeling that I don't have time. I need to finish it all, and I have to do it by this age, and the success is this type of a thing. And the more time passed and the more I've grown, and I'm still growing, I understood that it's just the perspective of how you analyze it yourself. It has so many forms, but by defining it as one particular thing, that's actually creating not a limited belief system. For example, I'm successful when I make this X amount of money.
Right.
Truth is that when you make that money, and I've been there, I've done that, wanted that check, worked for it for so many years, got that check, it doesn't feel nowhere near as good. Because it's not as whole as it should be. And by constantly redefining what success means in your head, you ended up achieving more of it, because things take time, especially when you're 20, in your early 20s. And what do you need to do at that age is just plant seeds, positive seeds.
That's so hard to hear, though. As a 20-year-old, you're like, right? You see on Instagram, you see on TikTok, everybody's making millions of dollars, which is obviously not the case.
Nobody's making millions of dollars by doing nothing.
They all say they are, but no, right?
I don't believe they do. It's just, and for the most part, if someone makes millions of dollars by doing nothing, I really believe that the way that they came, they're probably going to evaporate in the same manner, if not faster.
So it'll just be there's
a consistent there's a consistent statistic with lottery winners, especially the ones that win the big jackpot, that the bigger the sum, the faster they lose it, or it's almost certain that if you win a certain sum of money by not working hard for it,
it's bound to go.
It's just going to leave in the same manner as it came. And that understanding kind of fuels more the reason of needing to plant positive seeds throughout your 20s. It's investing in your education, investing in your relationships, having your good crew of people that love and root and support you. So when it's time to conquer a challenge, you have your team that has your back and is there for you, and will say the right thing that will help you go through that hard day. It means nurturing your work relationships. As I said earlier, those people that really fuel your growth, the ones that are willing to teach you more, those are the golden ones. The ones that are willing to share their knowledge and pass it to you, take you under their wing. Those are the people to follow. People that show us kindness and have knowledge to give and want to give it are the real gems and angels that are walking this planet. And we all need a mentor, whether it is on the spiritual aspect, whether it is on a relationship, whether it is in work. We all need someone smarter than us to listen to. Whether you end up connecting to that person by coincidence, or you ended up paying for his service to get a perspective that is slightly different than yours. So by planting those seeds, you end up growing little plants, and which end up turning to slightly bigger plants. And one day they do turn to trees. When you're in your 20s, you feel like you don't have time and it has to happen right now. When truth is that it does happen. It's just a slow progress, because everything that's worth our while takes time to build. If it took that long to build, it will stay there for that long. If it took you 2 months to build something, it probably, the footings, the base is not there. In my profession, when you build a house, you need to establish your footings, and you need to make sure you have a certain depth, and you have a certain amount of concrete poured, and it's been cured for a certain amount of days. And the bigger the building, the bigger the footings. So if you really want to go tall, you have to have really great roots in order to grow as tall as you want. Just like everything else, it ends up that tends to stand the test of time, is if it's going to last. If indeed 5 years from now it's still there and people still make money as quick, then we'll definitely have something to consider.
The industry, if you try to take advantage of like a quick get rich quick scheme,
Right.
then it's not going to work. But I think you mentioned earlier, you said that money doesn't actually get you what you want or what you think you want. Let me challenge that, because when I think about myself and my own desires, if you can have the nice house and you can have the nice car and you can eat at the best restaurants, and I think I even sound like Eugene when I hear his voice when I'm saying this, because he said the same thing before, I think. That's amazing, and we all crave that.
1,000,000%.
Right?
It's
And
amazing.
it is amazing.
It is amazing, and there's no doubt, but yes, 100%, but it's not everything.
Okay. So what would you say you need that paired with to truly have a great experience and a happy life?
Conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And having a right thought process, knowing to understand what matters and what doesn't matter in this life, and what is worth our time and energy and effort, because we all have only so much time, energy, and effort to give to ourselves and to everyone. And when I say that, I don't think it's everything. Finance and money is definitely a way to live a comfortable life from survival mode. Even for myself, growing up in a middle class family. Right. With that said, it ended up also opening a completely different, shall we say, thought process, or fears, insecurities, certain things you've never thought of before in your life are now your reality. And that requires you to really, really dwell on who you are and your psychology, your well-being. If now you can do whatever you want because you can pay for it, that means that what will you do?
Right. Will you be a good morally person or bad?
Right. But what's now?
Right.
Right. What do you do with that tool? Because it is a tool. And you can do a lot of things with it. You can do a lot of wonderful things. You can also be, not do great things. You can be self-disruptive. You can really use it in whatever way you want. But you really need to know what you want. And I don't think that many people know what they truly want.
Right. That's such a great point. I heard David Guillaume actually said this to me once. He said, when you start to make a lot of money, the only thing that changes is that whoever you are now is magnified in every way. So, right, all your insecurities are now on display.
1,000,000%.
Your worst traits are, and also the blessings, but you have to be aware. So if you're not proud of the person that you are, then you don't want the money, because now everybody's going to see who you are.
100% couldn't said it better myself. It really brings out all your inner insecurities. It brings out all the demons. That's why you see a lot of time people that have great fortune, some very terrible things happen to them. Right. It requires you to have the right consciousness and mindset in order to be able to maintain that energy. Money is very strong energy, and some individuals know how to handle that energy and manifest it and pivot it. And some people don't really know how to operate it, and becomes to be disruptive and more damaging than it is positive. So I think it's a case by case, but to me personally, it really required a lot of inner work, a lot of Kabbalah sessions, therapy sessions, and a lot of inner contemplation, because I'd never wanted to be in a place where I serve it instead of it serving me. Right. And the more, and funny enough, I feel like the more you understand that you are just a vessel yourself, and all your blessings that you've got are there to fuel others' blessing, the more you become to be a channel. That's when things flow more and more your direction, which is a real magic of an understanding.
Very challenging, but if you get it done, then life's amazing.
It is really an amazing understanding. Times I get it, times I miss it, but
we're all human.
We are all human.
Beautiful. The last thing we'll ask you, and I think looking through this lens is the best sort of use case, going back at your younger self and giving just one piece of advice. It can be when you're 13 or 14, let's say before that initial opportunity. What would you tell her?
It's all going to be okay. That it's all going to work out. It's all your worries and concerns and all your hard work. It all has a reason, and there is a path, and you should and trust the process. You will get there. Try not to rush it. You're only 16 once.
Beautiful. Valerie, thank you so much for being on.
Thank
It was
you
an
for
absolute
having me.
pleasure. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.